Okay, I think we can start. Like 16 contributors already, and I will be surprised if we get several more. Okay, so my name is Alexander, and I'm a software engineer at Intuit, and I'm a contributor and maintainer of Argo CD project. I used to work on Argo workflows and rollouts, but right now I'm almost 100% focused on Argo CD. Okay, and before I speak too much, can I give a thumbs up if you can hear me well? Right, awesome. Okay, and today is our first contributor meeting. So that meeting is for us, and I guess we have it every week. And that goal is to, just get to know each other, share ideas, share knowledge. And today we have some agenda for today. So I will prepare a small presentation. So we'll walk through. I will try to give you overview of Argo CD architecture and components, and then few advices about how to get started, how to set up your dev environment. But even before going into that, I would like to propose to everyone to introduce yourself. So, and just maybe give your name and maybe a couple words about why you're interested in contributing to Argo CD and how much time you want to spend like every week, let's say, to contribute. Okay, and we have a lot of people, so I will try to kind of organize the process. Let's start from William. You are the first in my list. Yeah.
Yes, I guess I'm the only William. Yeah. Yes, I work for Red Hat. So I think we have a few other folks also from Red Hat. We are in the GitOps group, and we are interested in contributing to Argo CDs because we're gonna be using it quite. It's an important piece of our product strategy, and yeah, so I'll be probably devoting close to full time on contributing to this to Argo City project.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, and I have Darshan next.
Briefly say what you've worked on in the past. I would also think.
Oh, me? So I worked on Knative a little bit, it's the serverless. So I joined. I started this Kubernetes work roughly about 2 years ago. So I first worked a little bit on the Tecton, and then and then about a year on serverless, and yes, and then I start looking at this roughly about half a year ago, like the GitOps in general. Yeah, so has been all open source experience for me since I joined Red Hat, and I've been doing other stuff too. Like before, I was involved in like Apache stuff long time back, like more than 10 years ago. Yeah.
Right. Cool.
Thanks. So yeah, I'd be excited to join the community.
Welcome.
Thank you. And I guess Darshan, you're next in my list. Can you please introduce it?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Darshan Chaudhary. I'm a software developer based out of Bangalore, India. I work for this company called Gojek. It's a ride-hailing plus company. So we basically do ride-hailing, food delivery, e-money wallets, and all those things. Like we have 17 services in a single app. It's a super app of sorts. So I am a backend developer right now, and I'm not an infra guy. So yes, the reason I wish to contribute to Argo City is to sort of learn more about DevOps in general, and maybe in the future transition to a DevOps role or infra SRE role of sorts. So yeah, that's my main motivation. I plan to work on Argo City mostly during the weekends, But also, if I have something urgent, I guess I can work on the weekdays as well, like in the after hours, for example. So
And I guess you already with Argo for like a couple of months at least, or even longer.
yeah, exactly. So I've been sort of involved. I think about 2 months, 2.5 months now. I did try to sort of look for good first issues and see if I could help them. So,
And Darshan, did you say which company you're from? Sorry, I missed it.
yeah, I work for Gojek.
Go check. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Ed, you are next on in the list of speakers.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hey, Alex, I'm sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, just before that. So I'm in my in a personal capacity. I'm not representing Gojek. So
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm Ed. I'm one of the architects at Intuit. Have been involved with the Argo project from the beginning. Obviously, it started when actually Alex and a bunch of other people. Sorry, let me close the window. Other people were at Cloudx. I mainly help with kind of organizing the processes and so forth for the project.
Thank you. Oh, okay, sorry. Chetan, you are next. Can you please go ahead?
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Chetan. I work at Red Hat in India, from Bangalore office. So I joined Red Hat last year, and so I'm excited to contribute to Argo CD, and I'm willing to do. I'll be my full time contributing to Argo CD.
Awesome. If I'm not mistaken, your first contribution already merged, right? The first feature is.
Yeah, few of my PRs got much.
Thank you. Okay, next is Meg.
Few of my PRs got much.
Sorry, is it me, Alex?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Mei Zhang. I'm a software engineer at Intuit and full-time on Argo CD. That's it.
Thank you. Next is Jaydeep. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jaideep. I'm also at Red Hat. I work with William and the others as a part of the GitOps team. So I started as currently an intern, so I started working around the summer, and I haven't had a lot of experience working with open source and contributing upstream so far. So this is like an interesting opportunity for me to get a taste of that, along with like all the Kubernetes stuff that I've been working on at Red Hat as a part of this internship. So just generally very looking forward to exploring as much of this space as I can, and getting better at like open source contributions in general. So looking forward to that. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, next is Oleg.
Hey everyone, I'm Oleg from CodeFresh. We built a platform for CI/CD, so my interest in Argo is kind of obvious. I'm in CodeFresh. I'm doing mostly software engineering and architecture, and I hope that in a few weeks I'll be able to put around 50% of my time into contribution in Argo.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next is Tim.
I'm Tim Etchells. I joined Red Hat last week, and I'm on William's team. I'll be contributing full time. Before that, I worked at IBM for 2 years on a semi-open source Eclipse Word project called Codewind, and I'm looking forward to this one.
Welcome. Okay, next is Honk.
Hey, I'm Hong Wan. So I'm the manager for the Argo project within Intuit. You can see I'm full-time on days. So before that, I joined multiple startups and I worked with Alex, Jesse, Ed, Mukulika in the athletics. So we started the Argo project. So my main contribution is actually in the Argo workflows. And currently I'm the manager, so feel free to connect with me if you have any questions and I can help you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So interesting. I have a quick question. So you guys work on workflow before Argo CD? Does the workflow existed before
Right.
you know the okay? So what was the order?
Argo
Workflow is it?
workflows, then Argo CD,
CD,
then Argo
events,
events, and then Argo
rollout.
rollouts.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
workflow is the first project we got a good experience with the CR and the CRD to make it like Kubernetes native.
Got you. Thanks.
Yeah, and we also used it for as our CI system for a while.
Right.
The reason why you may not hear workflows more in the CI/CD landscape because the workflows is used much more in ML and data pipelines. It's very popular to those users. Okay, let's continue.
So let's continue. Gagan, can you please go ahead?
Oh yeah. So hey everybody, nice to meet you all. I'm from Red Hat. I started interning at Jan, and it's almost been 8 months now at Red Hat. So I'm on William's team as well. I'm working on the GitOps side of things. We're creating our own GitOps tool. So we showcase some interest towards Argo CD because we kind of use it for our deployments. So I think I raised my first PR today to master. So I'm looking forward to contributing. It's an interesting workspace. I mean, I've always thought about contributing to like an upstream project in the open source. So this is my first opportunity at it. And I think I'll be working full time towards it. So thank you all for the opportunity and look forward to working with you.
Welcome.
Welcome. Next is Argo. Is it did I say it right?
My name is actually Argo. My first name is Ang, so that's my old app in the company.
I see.
So yes. So I work for TripAdvisor. So I'm a principal software engineer for our ML infrastructure team. So we use Argo CD and Argo events, Argo Flow for our CI/CD pipeline. So as far as now, it works perfectly. So I'm glad to join the community.
Oh, hey, you are using the Argo workflow for the CI part also?
Yes, because for our model images, we need to build the image. So that's our pipeline for that.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, and how would you like to participate in the project?
I guess the question is, how much time do you plan to spend on average, and what kind of features you're interested in?
So I think I can like few hours a week. So many is problem driven. So I think I already maybe like create some issues to the project, and also I contribute one commit back to the Argo workflow recently. And yeah,
Thank you.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, Mukulika, you're next.
Product manager, I'm not going to contribute to the code of Argo, but maybe documentation and overall direction strategy. Yes.
Welcome also.
Yes, I have been with Argo project from 2017. So.
Yes, and I think Mukulika is to she understate your contribution to. Okay. Next is Jonathan.
Hey, my name is Jonathan. I work with William at Red Hat. Like Tim, I actually joined Red Hat this month. And also like Tim, I previously worked at IBM on open source Kubernetes tooling. And I am based out of Toronto.
Welcome. Okay. Next is Regina.
Hello, I'm Regina. I've been with Red Hat since June this year. I would be out of the Westford office, but I'm working out of Greater Boston. I'm generally still really new to the tech industry, and my background is actually in public health. So I'm great to test out new user experience things with. So still learning a lot about Argo, but really looking forward to contributing to growing the community and documentation and uh, any other pull requests, testing things out. I would love to do that. So looking forward to contributing.
Great.
Oh, and my breakdown for like time, I'm not sure about how often I'll be contributing, but I expect it to be a fair amount of my time. So.
Thank you. Kate is next.
Hi, I'm Keith Chong. Similarly with Tim and Jonathan, joined Red Hat last week. Work with William. A little bit of background: I've contributed to several open source projects, including the Eclipse Web Tools platform, or WTP, and CodeWin, and dabbled with the Open API generator, including providing the IDE support for VS Code and Eclipse. So yeah, I'll be working full time on this.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Next contributor is Vaibhav.
Hey guys, this is Vaibhav. I'm software engineer at BlackRock. I'm contributor and maintainer of Argo events. So if you guys have any doubt or you guys want to contribute on Argo events, feel free to connect with me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, go ahead, please.
Sure. Turn my video on for a sec. So hey everyone, I'm Dan. I work for Vaxat Research Systems, although I contribute as an individual contributor. I'm pretty much going to be doing part-time stuff on the weekend. I am a huge advocate for multiple Argo projects at my company, and I hope to get better adoption. But right now, I'm an individual contributor.
Thank you. Okay, and Alex Collins, go ahead, please.
Hi, Alex. Hi, everyone. Great to see everyone here today at the first meeting. My name's Alex. I am principal engineer on Argo workflows and events. That's my focus at the moment. I have previously worked on Argo CD, including implementing the Helm support and the sync waves support. I will be here to answer your Argo workflows questions.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's like, I noticed that, again, we didn't get two persons with the same name, except me, Alex, and Alex Collins. And so we're going to have the same confusion. We usually go by Alex M, Alex C. And even in meetings, we sometimes use this acronym. So, okay, so welcome everyone. And I didn't really know how much time introduction will take. It took way longer than I expected because of so many people joined. But still, I prepared like a small presentation for this first meeting just to get started. And I will try to be sure to leave some time for questions. And feel free to just interrupt me in the middle of presentation. I can answer questions right away. Let me share my screen first. And yeah, I wanted to kind of give overview of Argo CD, even though, even if you know it, maybe someone doesn't know what Argo CD kind of is doing and what components it has. So, and I'm going to talk about, architecture and then touch development environment setup, kind of the minimum set of things you have to do to start contributing, and then walk through the, how we organize tickets and how you can use this labeling system to find ticket which you want to contribute to. Okay, and before we jump into Argo CD architecture, I wanted to kind of step back and just try to explain what I think it is, and Mukuli can correct me if they think differently, but So what I feel like Argo CD it's a GitOps operator. And here I have the trivial diagram to show what I think GitOps operator is. So it's an extremely simple, very simple automation tool, which automates 3 actions: git clone, kubectl diff, and kubectl apply. And I think this is kind of, except each step is self-explanatory. First, we need to get manifests, then we need to take a look at those manifests and compare it with Kubernetes cluster, and then we need to apply changes. So it's extremely simple, and that's why a lot of users even question the need for GitOps tool. And I think they're right. So if it's so simple, then why automate it at all? And each GitOps tool kind of has, different answer. And I personally believe that Argo CD answered to that question, like why tool is needed. So it's a GitOps tool for enterprise. And I wanted to mention it because it explains why Argo CD is, what it is. So because it's for enterprise, that means you automate these 3 simple actions for thousands of developers. And that means, Argo CD, it adds some complexity, you need to run it, but at the same time, you're helping to thousands of people. So even if you help a little bit, impact is still big. And so that explains why Argo CD is needed. I feel like, so it really helps to, simplify life of developers in your organization. Plus, it also explains why Argo CD has like 3 different components, and it has Redis, and so it's not as simple as just the CLI tool. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so I'm going to continue. So as I mentioned, there are kind of pretty much 3 things you have to do if you are doing GitOps, and we have exactly 1 component for each action. So, and let's go ahead and talk about those components. So first one is Argo CD repo server. And this component is responsible for talking to Git and extracting manifests from Git. So in real life, it's not as simple as just clone the repository and read files. Typically, you want to cache cloned repositories. So repo server kind of takes care of it. It clones repository once and put it into a local file system, and then reuse it for subsequent calls. And so a lot of users don't want to just use plain YAML files. Instead, users want to use something like Helm, customize JSONnet, KSONnet, which is dead already, but still a lot of users use KSONnet. And there are more tools, and repo server allows to connect additional tools using just CLI integration. So you can configure it to invoke a script, which does whatever you want it to do, and it will produce manifests. And you can see a lot of boxes here. And these boxes means like basically you can scale that component. And in real life, you actually want to scale it because especially if you use config management tools, the process of manifest generation is CPU consuming, memory consuming. And this is right now kind of, I would say, focus of our next release. We want to make that component even more kind of performant. We want it to scale better, and we want to empower each replica of repo server to be, to serve more requests at the same time. Because right now we do get complaints from users that they have to scale it too much and kind of have too many replicas of Argo CD repo server. So if you want to work on scalability issues, welcome. This is component for you. Okay. Feel free to interrupt me if you want to, stop and ask questions about components. So if there are no questions, let's move to the next one. Argo CD application controller. So this is maybe one of the most challenging pieces of Argo CD because it's doing the most difficult work. So the responsibility of controller is to compare changes, compare manifests, sorry, not changes, manifests from repo server with the live Kubernetes resources, detect the difference, and then let user take a look at the difference, and then if user approve so-called syncing, push the changes into a cluster. So, and it's kind of kubectl diff, kubectl apply, but the challenge here is that controller manages a lot of, like, hundreds of clusters. So, and hundreds of clusters means you have to compare a lot of resources, and the problem is how to do it very fast. Just to give you better understanding, Intuit is a user of Argo CD, and we use Argo CD to manage 200 plus clusters. And we have some metrics about how many objects, how many resources we need to compare and push changes to. So last time I checked, Argo CD at Intuit manages 1.7 million resources across 200 clusters. And those resources, like, potentially part of one of 8,000 applications of Argo CD. So that's a lot of work. Basically, there is performance challenge. And controller, we had to implement some tricky logic to make it possible. So if you like performance issues, then, and if you want to play with multi-threading, Argo CD application controller is the component which you can work with. Okay, and this little box here is Redis, and I feel like Redis becoming more and more important part of Argo CD. It's mostly, again, because it's an enterprise tool. So it manages a lot of data, and we want it to be very reliable. Since it have a lot of users, we want to, every component must be, it should be possible to upgrade it without downtime. And we rely more and more on Redis. For example, in most recent release, we start moving some data out of Kubernetes CRD. We'll talk later about CRDs into Redis to improve performance. And so controller in particular, so every result of work of controller which user potentially interested in is saved into Redis. And controller itself, it doesn't have any API. So it's impossible to talk to controller directly, but controller kind of presents data to user through Redis, and it takes input from some Kubernetes CRDs. And next, we can move to CRDs and to the last component, which is Argo CD API server. And API server, as you can understand from the name, it's a basically gateway into Argo CD. So API server, it contains as well UI and set of APIs which powers that UI as well as CLI. And so basically it allows you to see a list of Argo CD applications and the state of every application. And application is stored as a custom resource in control plane cluster. So this is the CRD which I mentioned. And basically the flow looks like following. So Argo CD server makes a change or creates a new application CRD. Controller notices the change and process the settings of the CRD. And eventually it will produce kind of additional data about application. The data will include what resources are part of that application, the state of every resource. And then Argo CD server will get that additional data from Redis and present it to end user. And yeah, so the challenges of API server, it has to scale really well because it's a user-facing component. So if it's down, then basically users won't be happy and your deployment pipeline might fail. So it's a very critical component. And the kind of enterprise, the need to run it for enterprise, it makes things a little bit harder than they could be. It used to be totally stateless component. So it was just a proxy to, Kubernetes API, which is here, and to Redis. And it's not anymore. The reason is Kubernetes API is not suited well so it's not user-facing API, basically. It's supposed to be used by controllers. It cannot have like hundreds of open connections. And basically API server right now, it tries to, so we had to add a lot of caching here too. And so it uses Kubernetes Watch API to maintain up-to-date state of application CID in memory. And this is, as you can imagine, it's like challenging as well. Okay, I think, yeah, that's it about architecture. Good time to ask questions before we move on.
I was just curious to know how the Argo CD repo server clones the repository. Internally, does it use a polling mechanism to continuously scan for changes and then clone them?
Yeah. So we have kind of two types, two ways we talk to repo to Git. One is just the Git CLI, the common Git tool. So basically, repo server literally fork exec Git and execute Git clone. Plus, we also use Go Git, and we use that library to detect if upstream has any changes. And I feel like it translates into git ls remote command, but it's just much quicker because it's executed in memory. So, and one thing I didn't mention is there is a line between repo server and Git. So I think I can better explain it if I give an example. Let's say you have an application, and that application stores resources in repo ABC under the path like my application. So controller would send requests to repo server, and repo server first it will check if repository already cloned. If yes, it will just clone it. If not, then it will just clone it using git clone. Next, it will kind of validate that this repository is up to date. So it will execute git ls remote command using go git library, and it will give the most recent commit. So next, it will check if manifests for that commit already in Redis. And if it's in Redis, then just use it. If not, then it will check the configuration of application. It will fork exec config management tool like Helm or Customize, get the manifests, save it in Redis, and serve back to application controller. So yeah, and the biggest disadvantage is because it cloned repository once, it kind of pretty much, it can handle requests for, it can handle up to one request for a repository at the same time. So if controller sends two requests to one repo server for the same repo, they will be executed in order. First one will be executed, and then the second one. And that's why repo server have to be scaled. Like I know that some companies have like 50 replicas of Argo repo server, and this is like such a waste of resources. And the main reason is they have hundreds of applications in the same repository, and the only suggestion we have right now for them is to either scale repo server a lot and have a lot of replicas, or just split your applications across many repositories, and it will and then you can have like 2 replicas, and that will be totally fine. And this is not the best answer. So the next goal is to teach repo server to, I guess, clone the same repository multiple times. So you can kind of waste a little bit of disk space, but it's much cheaper than, a lot of CPU and memory. Does it make sense? Sorry, I gave.
Yes, thanks a lot for the explanation.
Okay. All right. So if you
got another quick question, maybe. Yeah, I wonder if you have another diagram or architecture diagram that can show like multiple cluster. This is single cluster, right? Single cluster.
Yes. Actually, it's multiple clusters. So I guess let me clarify it a little bit. So this small icon here, it kind of indicates a control plane cluster. So Argo CD controller, the whole Argo CD kind of uses it just as a database. It can deploy into the same cluster. So this same icon may be here, but here we have many clusters. So this application controller, it talks to each and every of these. So yeah, I didn't mention one thing. So Argo CD, so it manages multiple clusters. So you usually install it like once, and then provide credentials to multiple clusters and manage resources in those clusters. And this is, it's a trade-off between security and convenience. So if you provide, basically if someone breaking into the Argo CD, then your whole production is compromised. At the same time, your only other option is to install Argo CD into each and every cluster. It works as well, so you can do it too. But in this case, you have like one control plane per cluster, and it's up to you, whatever you prefer to do. So at Intuit, we kind of went into we decided to go for like a compromise. We don't have single Argo CD which manages whole Intuit production. We kind of just decided to limit blast radius, and we split it into segments, and it works pretty well. So we have a lot of Argo CDs, and each one kind of responsible for a piece of Intuit. And the good thing as well that usually users of those Argo CDs, they don't care about. So the developers of one segment, they usually don't need to go into another segment. So for them, it looks like everything they need to know about is in one Argo CD. So yeah, they can see all the applications and downstream services in one place.
Okay. Thanks.
Cool. Okay, we have 20 minutes, and I will try not to spend too much time. So I will go through how to deploy Argo CD on your laptop. And first, I want to talk about kind of what must-have components you need to have on your laptop. And list is not so long. So we have Golang, so you can build Argo CD. We have Docker, and Docker is for Redis and for Kubernetes. Next is Kubernetes itself. And good thing that you need almost any kind of Kubernetes would work because during development locally, we just use it as a database. And I really feel like even testing API provided by Kubernetes might work, and it's a good project, in future. But for now, we recommend to use either Minikube or K3s. Plus, you need kubectl. Argo CD won't use kubectl itself, but for debugging, it's really useful. So it's kind of optional component, but it's impossible to develop without it. And two more optional components is Customize and Helm. The reason they're optional is that if you don't use Customize or Helm-based applications, if you don't kind of create these applications in your dev instance of Argo CD, you don't need them. But if you want to develop, some feature for Customize integration, then you need Customize and Helm. Plus, it's maybe not perfect, but if you want to run unit tests locally, not in Docker, but on your laptop, then you need to have Customize and Helm because some unit tests fork exact Customize or Helm. Okay, and I will share a link to this presentation, and the presentation has link to develop.
One quick question, maybe we'll cover later. Can I run end-to-end tests on my machine, on my laptop? So if I have all these components, I noticed the end-to-end test look for K3s. So you have to have KDS installed.
It depends how you start end-to-end tests. So we'll touch it a little bit later, but there is a way you can you can kind of manually start all components without even K3s. You can point all components to whatever Kubernetes you're using, and E2E tests themselves, they just trying to connect to the cluster in your current kubeconfig, and only kind of hard-coded thing is in E2E tests. It assumes that all the tests must be run in Argo CD-E2E namespace. So if your cluster don't have that namespace, test will fail. And the reason is, it's kind of too dangerous. Like several times we almost run E2E test against production cluster or report cluster. And because namespace is hard-coded, it kind of, it's like a safeguard. Yeah.
But you can do, you can run your E2E test on your laptop.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And it is kind of, it takes a lot of time to run all the tests, but I will show you, shortly how to run test one by one. And I think that's the recommended way. Like CI will run all the tests, and then let's say one test fails, you can easily run it locally in your IDE.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The next step, and it's like a one-time step you need to do after you get your Minikube or K3s. You need to create some configuration in your cluster. And this is the list of things you need to create. So we need 2 CRGs, 2 custom resources, application and app project, bunch of config maps, and 1 secret. And this is how you can, basically, if you just run that one command, it will create all the resources. And there are different ways you can do it. I feel like the documentation, oh, I forgot to mention. Yeah, there is a link to developer guide, and it explains how to configure your cluster, how to install these components. So there are different ways you can, achieve this cluster configuration step. Developer guide explains one way, and that's why I mentioned another way here. So this is what E2E tests are doing. So we have kind of a set of manifests specific for testing environment. So if you just run this one command, it will create all these resources for you, and it has additional convenience. It will configure Argo CD to use built-in user admin, and it will reset password to word password. So, and I mentioned it here because it's been like useful for me. Basically, I run it very often. Every time I test like authentication and then I change password to something I forgot in the future, you can just rerun the same test and you will be back to kind of clean environment. Yep. Okay, so once you're done with it, next you can pretty much run components. And I've seen from conversation in dev channel, I think everyone already kind of started trying option 1, which is run everything in Docker. And I think that this option was developed by Jan. I'm sure a lot of you spoke with Jan because he's like very active in our channel. And the goal here is to provide the simplest possible way to start everything without any kind of configuration. Pretty much as soon as you have Docker Minikube, you can go ahead and execute make start, and it will take care of everything. And it's easy to use, but it is slower on Mac and Windows. So I wanted to discuss option 2, and the reason is this option 2 is a little bit more, it will make you more performant. Plus, make start uses, pretty much if you know how to run components manually, you already know how make start work, because make start literally execute the steps, automate the steps which I'm going to describe. Okay, so option 2 is pretty much the main difference between running things in Docker is that you can use some CLI commands to start components of Argo CD one by one. And advantage is that there is no Docker, so you don't need to use volume mounting, and compilation step is much faster. And additionally, you can choose to start only required components one by one, instead of starting everything at the same time. Yeah, and the only kind of preparation you need to do is you need to install tool called Gorman. And I'm not sure if any one of you worked with Ruby. I think they started it first. They created a tool called Foreman, and then Node.js added Nodeman, and then Go created Gorman. So it's a simple tool to run multiple processes and tail logs from all of them. So I already installed the tool, and what the tool does, it simply look for procs file in your root directory, look for lines in that procs file, and basically each line represents a process which it which it's supposed to start. And so the format is name of your process and then the command line which is supposed to be executed. So it's extremely simple. And we have procs file in Argo CD repository with a line for every Argo CD component. So we already talked about controller, API server, there is DEX, I didn't mention it, and hopefully you won't need it very soon. It's for SSO. hopefully it's because usually if you need it, it's some kind of tricky bug related to OIDC integration. So, and I'm mentioning it now because it's the advantage of running things kind of independently, one by one, and it saves resources on your laptop. So if you don't troubleshoot OIDC integration, then you don't run DEX. Next is Redis. We know what Redis is. Repo server and separate UI, kind of for convenience, is a separate CLI too. And Git server and dev mounter are pretty much tool for E2E testing. So Git server is a replacement for GitHub or GitLab for in E2E tests. So tests should not depend on external resource. And dev mounter is a tool for pretty much for two features: GPG keys and custom certificate testing. And I wanted to show that file because I feel like it's extremely useful for developers. So let me demonstrate the first advantage of it. Let me know if you don't see my screen well. I think hopefully it's big enough. So yeah, this is how you can start API server independently. API server, and yeah, so you can just run gorman start and then the name of component from the prods file. So right now I started API server, and at the same time I can go ahead and run UI using gorman UI. So I didn't. Okay, great. I already started API server somewhere else. Yeah, it's here. Let me do it again. So I started API server and UI, and this is pretty much if I'm working on user interface only, I don't care about controller, repo server. I don't have to run all these other components. So I can just use Gorman to start these two. And yeah, it's much quicker. Plus, if you're making changes in repo server and you want to restart it quickly, you don't have to kill like everything and then recompile everything. Instead, you can just go and restart just repo server. So that's what I did. I just killed that process and then started it again. So if I make code changes in between, I just recompile on the API server, and then things still working. So this is kind of my local Argo CD. It happens to have two applications, and I can make changes and play with it. So let's say you want to test some controller changes. Usually what I do, I just open one more tab and then start the rest of components. So Gorman start, repo server, Redis, and controller. So if I start that, then immediately I can do kind of more things in my local environment. For example, I can refresh application. So if I click refresh now, okay, it's been refreshed because controller already started and it picked the change. And yeah, so it's working. As soon as I don't care about controller, I can stop it and I kind of save some memory on my laptop. And yeah, so I highly recommend to use this way. And it's kind of, it is, I think make start is a good kind of way to get started really quickly. And then you can kind of, Gorman as the next step. So it's like a little bit more difficult to use, but easier to, it's better for performance. Okay, and next kind of great thing about prods file is that, as you know, like we all use different IDE. I use Golang, and then someone use VS Code, someone else might use Eclipse. So, and we cannot commit configuration for every IDE in Git, but prods file works for everyone. And basically it has all the information about how to start components locally in dev-friendly way. And you can use it, for example, to configure your IDE. So what I do periodically, I just copy paste this line from here and put it into debug configuration in Golang. So for example, let's take a look at API server. So this is how you can run API server. It has a bunch of environment variables. It has it has downstream service host names and ports. all I need to do, I just need to copy paste it and put it into configuration of IntelliJ or Golang. So this is pretty much almost the same line here. And yeah, so let me demonstrate it. So I can kill API server here, started from my IDE, and things should just keep working. Okay, and good thing about this prots file, so we keep making some changes, we keep introducing new flags, maybe rename some flags, introduce new environment variables, and team make sure that prots file works. And so if something broke in your environment, you always can go here and basically make sure that your configuration in your IDE matches this file. And if it doesn't match, then you have answer. Yeah. So basically less communication required. So this is our way to maintain, homogeneous developed environment. So my API server started. I can kind of check it's still working, and this is, you already know how to. It kind of helps you to debug things. So if I know how, if I want to debug something, yeah, all I need to do, I just need to do this configuration of my configure my debug configuration, and then create a breakpoint in the methods. For example, list API method, and my endpoint works. Okay, I want to pause and ask, like, are there any questions? Okay, so just I feel like just give it a try. Try if Gorman works for you, and if not, then reach out to us in the Slack channel. And in this presentation, I added some, just mentioned kind of few magic environment variables, which they already preset, but this kind of explains why it's needed. So there are some environment variables which were introduced just for dev environment. One is a fake in cluster, and this is to develop. This is to teach Argo CD to connect to cluster in your kubeconfig if you're trying to use kubectl default SVC. And the reason is it's a magic reserved URL inside of Kubernetes. It's hard to configure it locally. Instead, we just have environment variable for Argo CD to do this switch. And few other environment variables. So we have several features related to GPG keys and custom certificates. And the problem is we have to use volume mounting, Kubernetes volume mounting, and it's hard to get it working locally. So instead, to make it simpler, we introduced these two environment variables to teach Argo CD to use folders on your laptop instead of some hard-coded folders in location, which is inconvenient to configure on laptop. Okay. This is it, at least for the first meeting, for the sake of time, about dev environment. And I did promise to kind of talk about E2E tests. And so the answer is, if you simply run Gorman start all the components, and then you just go to any E2E test in your IDE. Let me find one. And then from here, you can kind of click run from here. Or you can, another way, you can use Golang CLI and you can type go test and provide the CLI command. So this is enough. So basically what it will do, it will try to use kubeconfig to connect to your cluster. It will make sure, one prerequisite is it will check if Argo CD, it will try to use Argo CD E2E test namespace, and then it will just try to connect to a locally running Argo CD components. So no need for K3s. The only assumption it has is that some Argo CD is running locally, and it has access to some Kubernetes cluster, and that's it. Okay, we almost run out of time, and I was hoping we will have some time for, for questions, but let me try to finish it. So we do have, this is the URL to good first issues filter. So we have a label, good first issue, and I think every day we have a meeting where we're trying to assign that label to tickets which are good for starters. So if you open it, there are already some URLs, some tickets, and what we usually apply that label if so ticket is not necessarily like easy to do, but at least it is straightforward and no design discussions are needed, and kind of all the information is inside of the ticket. So it's kind of self-explanatory how to implement it. Plus, we have additional labels which you can use for filtering. Basically, every label which starts from component something, usually we're trying to assign it to these tickets. And this is the label. These are components which we have. I think there is around 10 different component labels, and some of them related to API, some of them related to audit, CLI. For Red Hat guys, we have third-party Kubernetes label, and usually if we see something specific to OpenShift, we apply that label, or Rancher. Yeah. Okay, I think.
How often is Argo CD released?
It's released. It really depends on. It's changing over time. So it used to be kind of frequently when we had less users, and I think now we're literally transitioning into, now we're forced to test better, and it became like 10 times harder because of number of users. So we tried to increase the release cycle, and we were trying to, do it like a waterfall way, basically break master, and then have a kind of hard stop, and basically don't merge a lot of, at least big PRs, only merge very simple ones, and focus on bug fixing and testing. And this is not working well, and I feel like we are transitioning into almost like at least internally we're trying to release things continuously. And yeah, so but okay, to answer your question, right now it's released around every 2-3 months, and I feel like we're looking for a way to improve quality, and it might result into shorter cycle. Maybe we'll release quicker. Yeah.
Okay.
And it really depends on how it's going to work forward with more contributors, because when Argo didn't have that many users, it was kind of okay to break things. And then, the new users who joins, they can report about the bug, we can fix them, and everyone is happy. Now we really kind of affecting someone's everyday, work, and every bug, even if it doesn't affect you as a user, it might be, it might break someone's production. So now we have to be like 10 times careful, and the performance issues is I think it's a major kind of performance and scalability is the biggest problem right now, mostly because it's hard, like integration tests don't catch scalability bugs, and we just don't have, we have not prepared yet well for that. We don't have infrastructure to test performance and scalability, and right now we pretty much use Intuit for that purpose, because Intuit has so we deploy much earlier to Intuit Argo CDs, and we make sure things are working, but we deploy it not everywhere to subset of our users, but even that is kind of not enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, Argo is really becoming like a service, and I'm super happy we have Kubernetes, because it just kind of abstract away all this complexity. It's still possible to deploy Argo CD just using kubectl apply, but internally, yeah, we have like components which talk to each other, and like we have to deal with resilience, and components have to try to self-heal themselves, and so on.
Okay. Thanks.
I came across another GitHub organization known as Argo Proj Labs, which has Argo CD operator and a couple of other projects. So how is this related to the main Argo organization? And are these like upcoming projects?
Yes, I feel like the goal of every such project is to kind of graduate into Argo. And we decided to have separate GitHub org to kind of lower the barrier. So you can use it as a, kind of easy way to advertise your project, because, there is a chance people can keep looking into that repository. Plus, it's really easy to, iterate quicker. So good example, I guess, image updater. It was recently created. Image updater is like is a feature which asked by many users from Argo CD, but feature is kind of questionable. Some people don't like that feature at all. The feature is automatically update Git manifest when a new image is pushed into Docker registry. And this feature can be implemented as a separate project, and you just run it as a sidecar. So if we put it into Argo CD, then new users can try it only when Argo CD is released. If it's part of different repo in Argo CD labs, Argo Proj Labs, then you can deploy it at any point of time, but you have right expectations. So basically it has maybe, it's not polished yet, things can change. As soon as it's stable, I think we want to move it into Argo Proj. Yeah, so this is, so kind of if you have your idea and you want to validate it, something for, I guess, for Argo CD or Argo workflows, put it into Argo Labs and hopefully you will get users sooner. Then you can play with it, iterate, and then eventually move it into Argo CD.
Is that incubator? Incubator or incubator? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's a good point. I feel like, then it's, in order for it to move into Argo Proj, it must be either for workflows or for Argo CD, like not a brand new project. It cannot be just something, totally unrelated. But I feel like, Ed, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like if we decide to move Argo CD notifications into Argo Proj, it should not be an issue, right? We can just move that project because it's kind of continuation of Argo CD.
Right, absolutely. What the community wanted, easy way to share their work that they were doing, but it wasn't ready to be considered a formal part of the project. So this makes it a lot easier to let people do their own kind of experiments and contributions. But one of the projects is also going on right now is application sets. That makes it really easy for to manage basically the same application across multiple clusters, and that probably will almost certainly become a part of the Argo CD, formal Argo CD project. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, and I feel like as a community, we can, there are other projects which, so Argo applications is a good example. I feel like because everyone needs it, Argo CD notifications, image updater, it's another example where, some users might want it and some don't. So, and if, as a community here, we have a lot of interest in it, then, you can just mention it. And then so let's say you have new project, which is, which you think is useful for some Argo CD users, then good to mention it here, and then it will get higher visibility and will be prioritized, if there is interest in the community.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I saw a question about Flux integration. Yeah, so answer is, I feel like we basically, the Flux, for those who don't know, we worked with Flux team, and we were trying to pretty much merge two projects, or at least find a way to merge projects. And we started from trying to merge code bases and at least reuse the same libraries, use one library for identical features. And so what happened is we learned a lot, and we've created a library which can be used in Argo and Flux. And right now, Argo uses that library, and Flux is pretty much, they decided to build version 2, which is not even, it doesn't look like Flux version 1, and that's the focus right now. In future, they might want to use it, you know, I think as soon as they get exact same use cases where libraries which we built is really helpful, they might consider using it, but I think right now they're just working on something else. They're working on different cases where library is not needed. And I guess, yeah, that's the answer. So it's not happening, like there are no plans from our Flux team to use the library which was developed together right now. And in future, it depends on their, you know, on their priorities. And the good news about this library is that there are some other projects which kind of at least working on POCs right now, and they contribute. So the work which we did, it was not a waste of time. And I keep referring to it as a library. So the library called GitOps engine, and it's in Argo Proj repository. So in Argo Proj GitHub org. Okay. I was hoping we'll get more time, you know, to talk about next meetings and for you to give feedback. So if you have any feedback, and if you're okay to stay longer, please, you know, I'm here, and or we can kind of took it offline and try to figure out agenda for next meeting. Yeah, so because we have meetings every week, I'm hoping to kind of make this next meeting more, you know, oriented for you. So it would not be just, you know, talking. I wish you kind of ask some questions, and we'll try to prepare answers for your questions. And yeah, so please use next week to play with Argo CD, DevTools, and then give your feedback if something is not working. And I know that, you know, we do have some issues with Dockerized environment. It's just, it works really well for Linux users. For Mac users, I personally don't use it because it's too slow, even on my Mac Mini. Yeah, so if you know how to improve it, and basically I feel like different type of developers, you know, heavy Linux users might prefer to use Docker. I keep kind of pushing to use Gorman, and let us know, you know, if you want third type to run Argo CD, and we can incorporate it in the environment. And I personally, I like to rely on CI to run E2E tests. If, let's say, if you, William, wants to run it locally, then, you know, tell us please if it doesn't work for you, and we can work together to improve it.
Yeah, and also one more thing I want to just bring up is since we have a bigger community, I think there are a lot of the questions here and there. So since we are the contributors, I think you guys actually have a little bit more knowledge, or even have a lot of knowledge than us sometimes. To please help to share your knowledge with others to help the questions. So really appreciate that.
Awesome. Yeah, I see a proposal from Alec. Yeah, Alec contributed a third way to run Argo CD actually, and I totally didn't mention it. Good you brought it up. So there is a way to deploy Argo CD into the cluster and debug it remotely. I have not tried yet just because I'm fixing bugs frantically for 1.7 release. As soon as it's done, I want to try it too.
Yeah, I can demonstrate it next time, but it's gonna take like maybe 15-20 minutes just to explain what is the tool I'm using and what is the process involving. So I just think we're for the next time.
It's perfect. I think it's kind of great fit for this type of meetings. It's like 1 hour every week for us to share this type of, you know, tricks.
Alex, so one tiny thing. So I mean, maybe it's a little bit early stage since we are dealing with a lot of the scalability issues and the troubleshooting. I think since you have the most knowledge, maybe in the future we can have one dedicated session, just like see how we can get the insight about internally what happened, like the memory issue, CPU issue. then all the interaction where it could be the structure. So I think that will be very beneficial to the community.
I agree, and I feel beneficial for for us, meaning for end users. So what Honk is talking about, after like 1.7 release introduced a lot of changes, and we're forced to make these changes because we have to scale more and more, and we did these changes, and now we kind of have production issues. As soon as we're done with fixing them, I think I can give a kind of post-mortem and explain what happened, and then you will have knowledge about what to watch for. And so okay, now we have two agenda items already. Yeah, and hopefully all the bugs will be fixed by next meeting. So we have good update. Okay, I think we already ran out of time. I don't want to, keep everyone here for forever. Yeah, so please let us know if you want to talk about anything else, and we'll include it into the next meeting. And
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really helpful.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the session. It was super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.